I've been going through police reports from rural Louisiana parishes that you're not supposed to be able to find anymore. Not old folklore, not campfire stories your grandma told you. I'm talking about official incident reports from the 1970s and 80s, filed, stamped, and then quietly buried, describing attacks by something the deputies on scene kept calling their Rougarou. And here's the thing that made me stop cold when I found these. Multiple officers, multiple parishes, describing the same creature in nearly identical terms, using language you don't find in hoax reports. Bipedal canine. Estimated 7 to 8 feet at the shoulder. Moved with intelligence, not like an animal. This wasn't drunk locals seeing a bear. These were trained law enforcement officers filing reports that their departments then refused to forward to state level. The Rougarou isn't just some Cajun legend they tell tourists in New Orleans. It's something that was attacking people in the swamps of southern Louisiana for decades. Something that left physical evidence, something that the state of Louisiana has spent 40 years making sure you never hear about. And I'm going to walk you through exactly what happened in those swamps and why the story went dark. So here's what they want you to believe. The Rougarou is French Cajun folklore, right? A werewolf story that came over from France, mixed with Native American shapeshifter legends, became a boogeyman parents used to scare kids away from the swamp at night. Purely cultural, purely mythological. The official line from Louisiana tourism is that it's a beloved cryptid, part of the state's rich tapestry of folklore. That word again. And you can even buy Rougarou t-shirts in the French Quarter. Cute, defanged, safe. But here's where that story falls apart. Between 1974 and 1988, there were at least 19 documented incidents across 6 parishes: Terrebonne, La Fourche, St. Mary, Vermilion, Assumption, and St. Martin, where people called police to report attacks or sightings of a creature that matches no known animal in North America. Not 19 drunk Cajuns telling tall tales. 19 police responses. I found incident numbers. I found the names of responding officers. 3 of those cases involved livestock kills so savage that the farmers wouldn't go back on their own land. 2 involved injuries to human beings. 1 a shrimper in Terrebonne Parish in 1981 who lost 3 fingers. The other, a teenager in Vermilion Parish in 1983, who was treated for lacerations at a local clinic and then vanished from all public record 2 weeks later. And here's the kicker. Not a single one of those reports was ever sent to state wildlife officials. Not one investigation by Louisiana Department of Wildlife and Fisheries. The parishes handled it internally, filed the paperwork, and let it die. Why would local law enforcement across 6 different parishes all independently decide that a string of violent attacks didn't warrant state attention? What were they told? Let me show you what survived the scrub. In 1977, a deputy named Claude Hébert responded to a call in Montaigu, Terrebonne Parish. A family heard something trying to get into their elevated camp house. And when I say elevated, I mean 10 feet off the ground on stilts, standard swamp construction. Something was on their porch. Hébert arrived, took a report, and included a detail that should have made headlines. He saw the tracks himself. He described them in his report as K9 in structure, approximately 9 inches long, showing claw marks and a bipedal stride. He measured the stride length at 43 inches. For reference, a gray wolf, which doesn't live in Louisiana, has a stride around 30 inches. He photographed the tracks. Those photos were submitted with his report. The report still exists in parish archives. The photos are missing. In 1981, a wildlife trapper named Émile Rodrigue was hired by a landowner in St. Mary Parish to deal with something that had killed 4 head of cattle in 2 weeks. Rodrigue found tracks, found scat, found claw marks on trees at a height of 7 feet. He told the landowner he wouldn't go back without a rifle that could drop a bear. The landowner went to the sheriff. The sheriff's report notes possible large predator, species unknown, and recommends contacting state wildlife. No state contact was ever made. Rodrigue later told a local reporter, in an article that ran once in a small parish paper and was never picked up, that whatever was in that swamp knew I was tracking it, and it circled back on me like a man would. In 1985, Two high school kids in Vermilion Parish came out of the swamp near Forked Island with a story that got them laughed out of the sheriff's office until the deputy saw the gouges on the hull of their pirogue. Deep, parallel claw marks that tore through aluminum. The boys said something came out of the trees at dusk, stood up on two legs, and watched them. When they started paddling, it followed them along the bank for a quarter mile before it lost interest. The deputy filed it as vandalism, possible wildlife encounter. He noted the boys were sober and genuinely shaken. The report was buried. This is the evidence that made it through. Imagine what didn't. If this is real, if there was something in the Louisiana swamps large enough, intelligent enough, and aggressive enough to generate nearly 24 police reports over 15 years, then we have to ask what it was and why the state shut it down. One possibility: an unknown species. A surviving population of something we declared extinct, or something we never cataloged in the first place. The swamps of southern Louisiana are some of the most remote, inaccessible wetlands in North America. Thousands of square miles of bayou and marsh that even locals don't fully map. It's not insane to think something could live there undetected. But here's the darker possibility. The state knew. The pattern of suppression is too clean. Reports filed, investigations stonewalled, physical evidence disappearing, witnesses going silent. That doesn't happen by accident. That happens when someone at state level makes a decision that this story doesn't get out. Why? Because if you admit there's an unknown apex predator in the swamps of 6 parishes, you tank the fishing industry, you tank the oil industry, you tank tourism, and you open yourself up to liability for every person who's been killed or injured in those areas. Or maybe it's even simpler. Maybe they didn't know what it was, and that terrified them more than any explanation. Because the reports don't describe an animal. They describe something that moves like an animal but thinks like a person. And that's a problem science doesn't have a box for. The last documented Rougarou case I could find was in 1988. After that, nothing. No more reports, no more sightings. Either it died, or it moved, or someone made very sure that no one ever filed another report that used that word again. The officers who wrote those reports, most of them are dead now. The ones who aren't won't talk. I reached out to 3 of them. 2 didn't respond. One told me, quote, "I said what I saw at the time. I got nothing else to say about it." That's not the response of someone who filed a fake report. That's the response of someone who saw something they still don't have words for. If you live in Louisiana, ask around in the older parishes. Ask the shrimpers, the trappers, the people who've spent their whole lives in the swamps. Don't ask about werewolves. Don't ask about the Rougarou. Just ask if they've ever seen something in the trees at dusk that stood up and watched them back. You'll be surprised how many of them go quiet. The state of Louisiana wants you to think this is a festival theme. It's not. It was real, it was documented, and someone decided you didn't need to know.